And it's also got huge potential to have an impact on many, many hundreds of thousands, if not millions of patients' lives. So I think this is another great example of where the sorts of things that we back and develop within IP Group address very big markets, which means real human impact and real scope for some very significant financial returns.
Hello, you're watching Proactive. Joining me is IP Group CEO Greg Smith. Greg, very good to speak with you this morning. With Pfizer acquiring Metsera for up to $7.3 billion, how meaningful could future royalty income from these obesity drug programs be for IP Group?
Hi, Stephen. Yeah, this is quite an interesting development. So this is something that we spoke a little bit about at our half-year results. As part of our business, we have some patents that we license and that we manage and license to companies. And this is one of those examples. And I think that announcement that Pfizer was acquiring Metsera has just sort of shone an additional light on this area of our business, and perhaps something that we feel has been a little bit overlooked by the markets. So we just felt it deserved a bit of an update on its own in the spirit of our commitment to transparency. So yes, it's very interesting that Pfizer has announced that they're going to pay almost $5 billion up front to acquire Metsera and this collection of anti-obesity drug programs. The reason that it's interesting for IP Group is because we are the licensor of the fundamental underlying technology behind their lead compounds and a number of others. And so if the compounds can go successfully through phase 2, phase 3 and get to market, then the group could stand to benefit from some quite substantial royalties on sales from those drugs. And so obviously it's quite a significant potential source of value for the future for IP Group and its shareholders.
Greg, Metsera's lead drug is heading into phase 3 next year. When might IP Group realistically start seeing milestone payments or royalties from this pipeline?
Yeah, I mean, interestingly, the company Metsera came out recently and said they were accelerating the timetable because it's shown such good progress. So I think they're actually targeting getting the phase 3 up and running by the end of this year, which would be good news. I think analyst forecasts appear to see first sales maybe in 2029, 2030, that sort of time. So dependent on how quickly the drugs progress through the approval pipeline, then the majority of our value would accrue at the point at which sales start. So in the sort of 2029, 2030 and beyond. I mean, I think it's just for the I guess the interest of listeners. It's worth pointing out that this is a collection of compounds that were produced by one of the real sort of founding fathers of the anti-obesity drug market, a guy called Professor Stephen Bloom, who is a prof at Imperial College in London. And way back in 1996, it was his team that originally discovered that the so-called GLP-1s or GLP-1s suppress appetite. And so that's really laid the groundwork for these incretin-based therapies being used both for suppressing glucose, but also for suppressing appetite. So it comes from a very good source. And so that's why we're particularly excited about the nature of the opportunity here. I mean, I think it's definitely worth pointing out this is a very big market, as you said. It's therefore got huge potential. And it's also got huge potential to have an impact on many, many hundreds of thousands, if not millions of patients' lives. So I think this is another great example of where the sorts of things that we back and develop within IP Group address very big markets, which means real human impact and real scope for some very significant financial returns.
Does this potential royalty stream change how you think about IP Group's growth model from being an early stage investor to holding longer term revenue interests in late stage assets?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, Stephen. I mean, it could be of the magnitude over time. And as I said, we've got to bear in mind that we're still in phase two for the main lead compound, but it could have the magnitude over time where that kind of consideration is something that we do have to articulate both in terms of our strategy and how we think about monetizing any such revenue streams for our shareholders. So it certainly it will be nice to have the option to consider that. And I think, ongoing long-term revenue streams are quite supportive of the long-term business model that we have here at IP Group. And it's one of the benefits, I think, of having a permanent capital vehicle which can invest over the long term and grow some of these businesses to material value over time.
It's been a busy period for IP Group, Greg. You announced three successful exits recently, including the sale of Monolith to Nasdaq-listed CoreWeave. Are we seeing a broader crystallization phase for IP Group's portfolio?
Well, you'll probably remember we had a tough couple of years, as did the rest of the venture market in 2022 and 2023. And last year, I think we somewhat bucked the trend and saw some very good progress on realizations. We realized about 160 million in cash in 2024. That included one of our most successful exits ever, the cash exit of Featurespace to Visa, and also Garrison to Everfox. And so there was increasing confidence, I think, within IP Group that our portfolio is both maturing to the point of being attractive to exits, but also in the right areas for potential M&A. And I think this exit to CoreWeave is another example of the quality and the breadth of our portfolio. It's probably not a company that many or any of our shareholders would have heard of. And yet we've been able to deliver a very successful financial result for the group. It probably sets in context the point that I made at the time of our full year results was that we can see a good degree of confidence on achieving more than 250 million of realizations from our portfolio by the end of 2027. And that's from the private portfolio starting from the beginning of 2025. And so this is another good indication that supports our confidence in being able to achieve that.
Greg, you're also investing £4 million into OxyCU as part of a broader fundraising. Encouraging to see your portfolio getting a lot of third-party interest?
Yeah, so of course the exits are the end of the production line process, and that's where we can recycle capital both into our buyback program, which has been very successful this year in retiring capital, but also reinvesting into the next generation of companies that are going to deliver value in the medium term. And OxyCU is another one of those really interesting businesses, and they've just completed with our participation a $28 million funding round. And I think the things that are interesting to look at in that round was just the breadth and depth of almost the who's who in this sustainable airline fuels industry. So we had people like Safran, Corporate Ventures, a very significant player in the space. We had International Airlines Group join the cap table for the first time. Many listeners will know that's the parent company of British Airways, as well as continued participation from other clean tech specialist investors like Clean Energy Ventures based over in the US. And so it's very good to see that level of commitment, and it's very good to be in a financial position where we can play a meaningful role in supporting this business to its next stage of growth. It's a brilliant business. They're based up in Oxford. They've got their proving plant up and running on Oxford Airfield. And the big driver, the big sort of background driver behind this is that many airlines are now starting to commit to including a proportion of SAF in their overall fuel mix by 2030, 2040, 2050. And I thought it was quite interesting. The quote from IAG as part of the round was that they have this commitment to 10% of their fuel mix being from SAF by 2030, and it's 2030 is not that far away really. So I think this is one of the ways in which they are investing in order to be able to meet that public commitment that they've made. And I think that overall both regulatory and industry driver means that there's a very bright future ahead for OxyCU, and it's another brilliant example of a British company solving these global challenges, hopefully scaling and getting inbound investment from a broad range of specialist corporates and specialist financial investors.
Greg, it sounds like a very busy and exciting period for IP Group. Thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Good to speak with you. Thanks, Stephen.
Greg Smith, the CEO of IP Group.